Welcome to another episode of the Hoopsfix podcast with me, your host, Sam Nita, full-time British basketball advocate. And unless you've been living under a rock, you should know that GB are opening up in EuroBasket on Wednesday this week. They are in a tough group with Lithuania, Finland, Germany, Montenegro, Sweden, I think it is. Hope I got that right. And of course, they've just wrapped up their preparation period on Friday, having gone 1-4 through their 5 games. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to get head coach Marc Steutel onto the podcast. Last time we did an episode was just when they'd qualified for EuroBasket 2022. That was a bit of a disaster of a campaign, to be honest. They had very little prep. They went winless. There was a lot of talk about sort of the failures of the program. And since then, I think a lot has changed, and it was really cool to get Marc to have an opportunity to kind of share that and discuss how he feels prep has gone and how he feels about the team's chances heading into the tournament. Before we get into the show, as always, please take 2 seconds to check out our Patreon account. If you like what we're doing, if you want to support the podcast, please consider giving us a monthly or annual donation of as much or as little as you'd like. That goes a long way in helping fund the work that we're doing. So please go and check it out, patreon.com/hoopsfix. As always, I would love to hear what you think. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. If you're listening in your podcast player, you can reach out to me on every single social media platform at Hoopsfix. If you want some private one-on-one interaction, feel free to drop me an email on sam@hoopsfix.com. I respond to every single one. Anyway, that is enough from me. Here is the latest show, this week's show, with GB head coach Marc Steutel. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. I was actually looking, the last time we did a podcast was just when you qualified for EuroBasket 2022. So a little while ago now. And I look back on that campaign and it felt like a bit of a low point for the national team. There was a lot of frustration around the prep or the lack of. When you look back to then and to now, how would you compare the two in terms of where you are at as a program?
Light years ahead. Yeah, light years ahead in terms of the team and the preparation and I suppose I think speaking to you now on day 24 of camp, we've had 5 really high quality prep games, able to start camp in the UK and have an extended squad. Able to develop probably all aspects, the physical aspect, the team aspect, the tactical aspect, and at appropriate points throughout the last 24 days, make difficult decisions on getting closer to the final 12. So yeah, I think I've actually spoke with a lot of the group at different points over the last. I've been with the group many years, but probably post that 2022 campaign, particularly players in the group that we've got that experience that we spoke about it early. I think we were straight into World Cup qualifying second round after that, so we spoke with the group at those moments about that experience and how we felt about that experience, and I gave everybody an opportunity to probably articulate the frustrations, the challenges, probably the anger that we had at that time. And I felt that was really, doing it in a really open forum. But since then, we've moved on. We've moved on for sure. And I think, massive credit to Dan Clark as general manager of, okay, he's got a lot of playing experience and we know that, but in his own right as a general manager now in terms of steering the ship with the program and, making sure that all of the really challenging operational, logistical decisions that go into trying to put a really healthy prep together. I think everybody who knows me says I'm really critical at times and I always kind of want the best. But, objectively, I think our prep has been excellent. So really, really proud of that. And yeah, I think light years ahead.
When you look at what the differences is between how you were operating then and now, like, is that down to the general manager? Like, is it down to funding? Like, what do you think are the biggest differences that have led to the change in outcome?
Yeah, I think the first one for me is like I say, leaning on Dan, a basketball person, talisman in the country who's, his connection to the national team and his lived experience as a professional basketball player. Dan obviously, knew that he wanted to kind of go down this route post playing career. I think by his own admission, he's learned a lot from when he first stopped to where he is now in terms of.
He was playing on that 2022 squad as well, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Dan was. That was his last competitive outing for Great Britain. So yeah, he was playing on that. So I think by his own admission, he's probably learned a lot about holistic development and perception. We talk about that a lot. But he's, Dan's a leader in his own right, and the natural traits that he has as a leader. He's excelled in his role as GM. So for me personally, as head coach, that's probably been one of the biggest benefits that I've found. In terms of funding and those types of questions. Honestly, it's not something that I like to really get involved with or try and know a little bit about. I just think that for me, we've tried to make sure that in every window and every contact time we have with the players, the players have a sense and a feel of the culture that we create in the windows, in prep, in games. And we want them to know that they're loved and they're appreciated and they're valued, because it's not easy to do this, and it's I always say to them, it's not easy during the season when, some of them are getting pressure from the clubs maybe not to come into the windows. All of them are carrying niggles and health considerations. And then we look at it this time, some of them have finished their season at different points, maybe in June, maybe towards the back end of June, a few weeks off with the family, and basketballers live a crazy life where, for 10, 11 months of the year, life is predicated around, is it a training day, a traveling day, or a game day? That's literally what their life's predicated around. And now they've give up, this period. So yeah, Dan and I, we get a healthy balance of, understanding what our vision and what our goal is. We professionally challenge each other daily. We really kind of make sure that we have a good level of professional challenge. And I think hopefully that the players can see, that we put pride on it. So I think the biggest thing for me is being able to have extended time with them. That is it's a no-brainer. That shouldn't be something that we're sat here talking about in my mind as a positive going into EuroBasket 2025. Basketball nations around the world, it's a no-brainer that you have preparation going into what's highly regarded as one of the best basketball tournaments in the world in EuroBasket in terms of the depth of quality across all the nations. So, but yeah, I think for me, we really try and double down on that and value our players, take care of our players, hear our players, see our players, and hopefully that's something that they would echo as well.
I was going to say, there's sort of like, I guess when it comes to building a program and trying to build a culture, like I guess what are the goals of what you're trying to do? Like what is it that you're selling to the players when they come into the program or when they have contact with the program, to make them want to get involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a lot of people on this, and I think for me, my development with the national team, I'm proud of where I was when I started. I'm proud of where I am now. I think I'm going into my 7th, 8th year, with the seniors as an assistant, as a lead assistant, as a interim head coach, as a permanent head, whatever titles. And that culture word is the word that we probably talk about the most. And I think, I talk about my timeline with the program because that's the only thing that I can comment on because it's my lived experience. That culture word is something that we really wanted to highlight, to double down on. And I think that's so important. And, the context of that is these guys are judged on stats, money, the business side of it, and they're coming in to play for their country, and it's pure. Coach Jackson, who's been with us 3 years now, who for me is elite at culture development, and he doesn't get enough accolades for the program down there at Kohler. He says that our first phone call to him was, I said, look, I want you to come and get involved. And I said, I promise you, you're not going to experience anything like this. It's pure. It's the only thing from, probably CVL basketball. For me, it's pure. So So our culture is what we sell. I mean, for this specific cycle, when we started the qualifying campaign, Dan, myself, the staff, the coaching staff, the performance analysis staff, we sat down and targeted a large group of players. You know, we put a long list of players together that we felt at some point over that 2-year qualifying campaign and the tournament should be in consideration. We had Zoom calls with every one of them that you know, we kind of asked them if they had an interest to be a part of the program, and everybody who had said yes, we then sat down with them. Some was just me and a player, some was Dan and a player, some was me, Dan and the player, just based on where the player is and different circumstances. And we sat them down and said, it's really simple at this where we're at. We've got 2 clear goals. And the first goal was to qualify for EuroBasket. And the second goal in this cycle was to be the best performing GB team in EuroBasket history. You know, I think we all for sure want to compete and do the best we can against these powerhouse nations, but we also understand where we are as a basketball nation and the growth that we have. So that was the 2 goals that we've set out. You know, in February, we obviously achieved our first goal. We've had a meeting here tonight, you know, just before we've kind of informed the guys of who's made the 12. And again, we put that goal back on the board and we look back a little bit. We have an expression here about don't cheat the bloodline, you know, understanding those who came before you. And we want to try and leave the program in a better place. So we understand that since 2009, I believe, in 5 EuroBaskets to date, I think we've won 4 basketball games. So, you know, we understand, and that's not from a lack of intent or a lack of trying for sure. We understand that we have a monumental task ahead of us. But that's a kind of what we talk to about the players. We then talk to them a little bit about the other stuff we spoke about, the culture, themes that have come out from the group tonight. You know, we heard the players' voice tonight in the little kind of meeting, celebration, congratulations that we did. And the common themes that were coming out from the players were how it feels to play with players they grew up with, how it feels to play with players that they grew up watching. You know, some of the players like Gabe and Miles, who are, you know, at the more experienced part of their journey. Some of the younger guys talking about watching them in a GB jersey, and some of them talk about, again, you know, finding the joy and the passion for basketball because, yeah, everyone has got that individual desire, but we are playing for a cause that's bigger than ourselves. You know, we're not necessarily playing for that next contract, that next accolade. You know, we're playing to try and do something to, 1, achieve our goals as a nation, and 2, inspire the next generation. So I'm explicit with our communication on that. We definitely use different ways to bring that to life. I asked the players to live and breathe it. The staff would chuckle because, you know, I kind of use that expression on a daily basis. And yeah, so that's kind of what we talk about when we talk about what the program is and how players can get involved. And yeah, hopefully not hopefully, I think I'll say this, I think our evolution now, because we've had a lot of players in for a long time, still with new players being embedded, I think when I started, I felt that I was constantly banging the drum about this. And whilst I still do, I now hear the players own it and talk about it more. And I think that's, you know, like I say, I'm extremely self-critical and self-aware. But I think one of the things that the staff have done collectively and the players have absolutely owned it is I feel that they own the culture now. And I do feel that, you know, if staffing was to change, but the same players were here, I do feel that they would own that that sense of feeling of what it means to play for your national team. And I think that for me is a massive positive. You know, it doesn't show up in the win-loss column, and obviously that's what we're judged upon. But I know, you know, I can go to sleep at night in camp knowing that, you know, I hear the players talking about it. I sense the pride that they have about understanding what it means to represent GB. So for me, that's exceptionally positive.
You speak about results there. Like, obviously, you've played 5 games in this prep. You're 1 of 4. Like, how do you assess sort of your team's performance through the preparation? And do you feel like you're sort of getting closer to where you want to be heading into the tournament starting in, 3 days?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the constant message that we've had on that as well is, you know, we're not going to be judged on at where we are at the start of the tournament on August the 27th. 12:30 UK time, I believe. No, 12:30 local time. In
11:30 UK time, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be judged on. It's going to be 1:30 local time. There you go. I need to correct myself. But yeah, we're not going to be judged on the start of the tournament. We'll be judged at the end of the tournament. After we've completed those 5 games and playing against a world powerhouse like Lithuania, who've had a really good prep. Results have been good for. I think they're 6-1 from memory, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, we we're 1-4. We look at those results. I thought we started off against France really positively. In many areas. You could tell that, in that part, there was definitely a conditioning element of us, where, I think France at that point had been going a touch longer than us for sure. Playing in a gym where it was 42 degrees was probably a new experience for a lot of people. And obviously we played, 14 players, which, is a challenging thing to do at times. So I thought we showed some positive signs of who we are, our DNA in that. I thought we did a positive job. We go to Belgium, and again, I thought we were competitive for the most part. There was probably a 3-minute spell in that where I thought, some guys again probably learned a little bit more that if you have a loose 3-minute spell at this level, sometimes it's difficult to get that back. Bosnia was frustrating for everybody involved. But again, the one thing that I'll say about my group is, we're hardworking and we're humble, and we found a way to use that and learn from it and try and grow. And yes, Slovenia again, I thought, we had spells, more consistent spells, while still trying to figure some things out. I think the guys enjoyed the challenge of going against Luka, and I guess being on that stage. And obviously we play Estonia a couple of days ago, who, I don't know if their expectations are maybe similar to us, in terms of what they want to do. We want to be the best version of ourselves and be the best performing team in GB history. And again, I thought we were solid. So honestly, I mean, I'm not saying this because I'm sat here in this forum. If we were, we're 1-4, if we were 4-1, I probably would still feel the same going into the tournament. And I think, on day one of camp, I sat down with the players and explained to them that, we broke this down into 4 separate phases. And okay, it's easy to say we're not judged on results, but we want to try and make sure we achieve what we achieve in these phases. And we really didn't want to be reactive, Sam. I think that was so important. We knew that at some point playing teams at this level, we were going to get punched in the face. You can't not. So we said that, whilst we'll continue to learn and understand about ourselves, we didn't want to play a game where, something hurt us tactically, offensive rebound and transition defense. And then we just, went off piste and spent 5 days just doubling down on, well, this is how we fix that. We've tried to build each phase of play for us. We've tried to build being a complete team. We've tried to learn about how to best use our group to be in position to be successful. We've tried to, again, play more consistent periods of our DNA, which is something that we talk about a lot. So, yeah, would I have liked more wins? Yes, I'm competitive. The group would have liked more wins. But honestly, I think, for me, I'll accept judgment on us. That's a responsibility I have by the end of the group phase. And whether, we've been able to look at that, and hopefully our journey will continue, and hopefully it doesn't end at the group phase. That's what we want to do. Massive challenge. But yeah, so that's it. So we've had positive spells, we've had some challenging spells, we've had some inconsistent spells. But the one thing that we've done every day, we haven't shied away from, I guess, the honest conversations and the honest improvements, and we've tried to build every day.
Do you think that win against Estonia was important just for team morale, sort of, to wrap up the prep period?
Yeah, for sure. And you're going to get an honest answer from me. For sure, we wanted to try and. I think that confidence and that belief and that morale, I think, was important, and I think, obviously, but the way in which we did it, the way in which we attacked the paint and got to the free throw line, the way in which I think our defensive rebounding percentage in that game was about 74%. Times in the game it was up to 80%. So, we did a really good job of holding them to one possession and finishing plays our way, enabled us to play our way and get out on. It's all good and well wanting to play fast, but if you're not getting stops and you're not finishing possession, it becomes a little bit more difficult. So, yeah, I think overall we had a better sense and feel about us. But again, the experience in my group, I love it where, the guys were happy, they were pleased for each other, and they said again, it's still a process. So they understand that we've still got a long way to go, and for sure we're going to face teams that are going to challenge our togetherness. I think we're going to face some teams that are going to do that and put us in some really difficult situations. But yeah, absolutely. Confidence, morale, togetherness, belief. Some of the guys seeing the ball go through a few times, and then what that can do for them individually. So yeah, really, really positive. Positive to get that last win. I think it would have been a long few days, longer than it's felt like before we get to the tournament. And yeah, hopefully we can learn from that one as well.
What do you want the team's identity to be? Like, how do you want to play? Like, for fans that are watching, like, what should we be looking for technically, tactically? How you want the team to be sort of playing those games?
Yeah, I'll say this a lot. I've said it. I think I've said it on here before, Sam, with you, and I've said it in every forum I get, because I understand that this is a collective effort. But I'll shout out Adam Sewell here for me, who is beyond exceptional, whatever the word for that is, in his role. So again, when I started in my role, I talked about what I believe are the pillars of success with this program. I remember writing them on a piece of poster paper in a room, I think in the Hilton Hotel in Newcastle. And you fast forward however many years we are now, we actually quantify and live and breathe our DNA. So we've got an offensive framework and a defensive framework. And Adam, along with the staff, like Andreas has been here for a long time as well, and consistently echoes and does this. Alberto has been an incredible, servant for the national team. But we quantify these things. So we talk about our press the ball. We pride ourselves on ball pressure, on protecting the paint, protecting the 3-point line. Disruption and knockouts, which is finishing plays. We had 8 knockouts in the game at Estonia, which is obviously a high one for us. A knockout in our term is 3 consecutive stops. Now, for sure, we want to different teams pose different challenges on that. And again, I think at this level, you've got to accept at some time what you are going to give up, and that will change game to game. And we've seen that style of play with differences from Bosnia to France to Slovenia. 3 completely different styles of play. Offensively, we really want to try and play with great spacing. That's a constant area of focus for us. And when we do that, I think we're a hell of a team. When challenges go our way and teams are sophisticated enough to disrupt your flow and your spacing breaks down, that's the next, kind of real part of our development. We want to make sure we share the ball. We want to try and rack up 25 plus assists where we can. We want to dominate the shot clock and dominate the paint. So again, it's probably obvious, but our numbers, when we are really dominant in the first 8 seconds of the shot clock, based off a stop, even based off a score, we really want to try and push the ball from a score as well. We're able to generate high quality shots. We're able to get to the free throw line. And again, they're the indicators that lend itself to positive outcomes. So we always are trying to maximize our players in different positions, and straight away someone like Carl Wheatle comes to mind, who is playing at a Euro Cup level for a very, very storied team, and he's had a really good career to date in Italy and will continue to do so, who has had to wear many different roles for us at different times, from playing 1 through 4 and defensively even switching on to the 5 at times. And when you pull the squad together each window and each time, you've got to try and keep the DNA. The DNA is how you play. And then you've got to try and be really specific with the tactical needs in each kind of situation. So we definitely, we want to play, we call it the GB DNA, we call it our way. We want to try and make sure that, those obvious indicators are there for anybody watching. And again, I think some of the games that we've struggled in prep, we haven't dominated the style and the tempo for long enough periods. The games where we've had successful periods, our DNA is there, is in abundance. So, so we always review what's worked previously for us, whether that's specific actions, whether that's certain lineups, whether that's certain approaches. We always are really critical on how we review. and what we can take. And a lot of it, again, is, hopefully generating confidence and belief in what we're doing with our players. We want our players to get into the window, and it's a refresher. We always try and maybe add or modify a couple of things here or there, but we never really want to go too far away from the things that have helped us to get here. Whilst prep was challenging, qualification, we were 4-2 and undefeated at home. So we want to kind of say, well, let's double down on the things that we've been successful for, and hopefully, continue to build upon that.
And you mentioned it a bit earlier, but how do you prepare the team to go up against someone like Luka? Like, what was the strategy going in to that game? It's like, do you just let him do what he does and try and focus on others? Like, kind of, what was the team talk beforehand about how you were going to try and stop him?
Yeah, fun challenge, I'll tell you that. Like, 41 years old, and I've been involved in basketball my whole life, different levels, and it's a fun challenge to definitely experience that. And I think, again, I'm kind of authentic and open enough to share that. That's a fun challenge. It's a fun part of this job that tests you. Coach Andreas did a great scout for Slovenia. Really, pulled together a lot of their information, which was important. General ideas with Luka. We were a little bit more specific, and I'll keep some of that stuff for us. But general ideas for Luka was, make it as difficult and as challenging as we could. Understanding when he is really assertive, which is usually, the first 3 possessions of the game is usually taking threes from 45 feet. So we wanted to really take pride in the quality of our contest. We wanted to do a really good job at the point of attack defender. We wanted to give him no back-to-back rhythms. We wanted to keep him off the free throw line, which we didn't do a great job of. And we really didn't want to overcommit, where we didn't want to consistently load 2 to the ball with him, and we didn't want to double him on post-ups. And when we got him off the block, we wanted to make it really difficult, generally with as much single coverage as we can, because at his size and his playmaking ability, Luka was going to score and be Luka. So we wanted to try and do the best that we could to disrupt rhythm threes, uncontested rotations, those types of possessions. So again, we watched back some really positive possessions. I got in my mind where Adamu, had him on a post up, and I thought played a great contest, and he made a tough mid range too. And I thought that was a solid defensive possession for us. At some point with those possessions, we've got to say, we played good defense, we conceded to better offense. We've got to take the ball out and run and try and get back to our DNA. So, with Luka, that was our general ideas. And we reviewed that. Again, you look at his stat line, we could have done a better job for sure. And hopefully we've learned from that when we go up against Franz Wagner. I'm trying to think about positional, comparisons. Obviously, we're going to play Valanciunas in our first game and Makinen in our second game, who's, numbers in preparation have been out of this world. So whilst he's a different position, they present a different challenge. But again, I think that lends itself to the quality of competition at EuroBasket that I know everybody is really excited for.
One of the other things that I wanted to talk about was just player availability. I think coming into this summer, there was a lot of excitement about, a group of young players that sort of coming through, obviously Quinn Ellis being the most notable of them. And then you've got Tosan and Amari, who are now sort of trying to make their way in the NBA. Cameron Hildreth, who's just graduated from Wake Forest. Like, kind of what's the situation with these guys, and why are they not here?
Yeah. I am genuinely pleased. I expected you'd ask the question, and I'm pleased you haven't. And I think there's 2 reasons for that. I don't think that you're going to find, I'm not being disrespectful to anybody, particularly within our group here, 2 more passionate, diligent, and dedicated people in this program than myself and Dan, who absolutely think tirelessly about what we can do for the betterment of the program, and I think, I've seen some comments that have got back to me. I've said to you before, I'm not a social media person, but, about, this person's not playing. Why didn't you get this person playing, etc. I think, I look at that and my first thing is, I'm proud of the 12 players that we've got here in the final roster. I'm proud of the 20 players that we brought into camp who've helped us get to this point. And I want to protect my group is my first feeling, because it's not easy to do what they do. Yeah, Dan and I have, and not just Dan, we utilize Jackson's ability as well to communicate with a lot of guys in between the windows. So it's one of his roles. We looked at every single player and every single possibility, and we have worked tirelessly to try and put the strongest competitive squad together, particularly in camp, and then have the opportunity for players to compete for positions. That was the absolute goal across every position. You mentioned some names there. I'll talk about Quinn Ellis, and exceptionally excited for him to get his opportunity with Milano next year in the Euro League, and there's nobody more deserving. Quinn, for me, has been an absolute revelation, particularly in national team basketball, since he debuted with us. I always, sometimes I blend these together. I want to say he played Belgium at home and Serbia away, I believe might have been his first window. And the Belgium at home was a tough game, and Serbia away, he was electric. I think he had 19 points in the first half, or something around there. I get a bit foggy with the details at times. Quinn, I think in qualifying for us, averaged 14, 5 and 5, somewhere around there. Was instrumental in so many performances, no more so than the Greece win at home. And if Quinn could have been here, he would have been here. There's no question on that. Managing, he's going to have a great season. He'll be ready for the start of the season, but he's definitely managing some physical considerations that I think have played a massive impact. Quinn, Dan and myself spoke daily or every other day in the build-up, stayed in contact throughout the camp, and Quinn is devastated that he's not able to be here. So, for sure, Quinn was a massive impact of our group. Made us get to this point, helped us get to this point with everybody else, should I say? And we're disappointed that we don't get to experience this with him. I am exceptionally confident that his national team journey will continue. Obviously, his connections with his mum, who's been an incredible servant on the women's national team. I know what this means to Quinn, and Quinn has my trust, and hopefully I have Quinn's trust. So, if he would have been able to, I know he would have been here with Quinn. You mentioned a lot of other names there. We've had conversations where we've been able to engage in conversations, and sometimes we haven't. Sometimes we've been on the front foot and tried to engage in many different ways, directly, sometimes through agents, sometimes through people who've worked with them, sometimes through family, and we've had varying levels of dialogue with all of those people. So, there's probably some I can comment on, maybe some more than others. We wanted to try and bring as many of those people together into the 24 and see what we could do. We also wanted to understand, the strength of our group is our group. We talk about that a lot, in terms of France playing a different roster generally between the windows. Germany have done that in the past, and I get it when you're bringing in NBA level talent and Euro League level talent. But we've also tried to find a balance of what's been consistent for us, who has made themselves available, who's actually said, yes, I'm going to come and, get into camp and compete, and who hasn't. So, we have, I guess, to summarize all of that, we have been really diligent, worked tirelessly from February and before that on trying to put together the most competitive squad we could to achieve our aims. And that's not saying that one person would have been guaranteed to be in over somebody else. I'm not saying that at all. But what we really wanted to do was bring in as many of those players, that you've mentioned, outside of Quinn. And I'm just saying that because I've worked with Quinn in the windows. We weren't able to. but it wasn't from a lack of trying on our behalf.
The other question I got about is Gabe. Obviously, we could see him on the bench in all the games, but obviously he hasn't suited up yet. Like, is he healthy? Like, is he expected to suit up on Wednesday? What's his sort of status?
Yeah, Gabe's in the 12. Gabe is Gabe's working through. There's nothing serious whatsoever. And yeah, Gabe's on a timeline that we've best planned out, and we've mapped it out collectively. And he's working his backside off every day. Gabe is a warrior, a fighter. 18 points, 15 rebounds in that Netherlands game, I believe, from memory, I think. Gabe has tirelessly and time again showed up for his country. So yeah, Gabe has everyone's respect. Huge boost him being with our group. Wednesday, we'll see, Sam. I'm not being coy. We have a timeline that we're working to, and we'll probably know more game day -1 on that. But yeah, we expect Gabe. And we hope Gabe will be available. Nothing serious. We're just working through a few considerations with him, and yeah, we know that if we can get him back on the floor and help, we'll be in a good spot.
Talking about the roster makeup, and obviously that crop that we were talking about that sort of aren't there are the sort of the next generation, right? They are the younger crew coming through, and I guess it's always a consideration when you come into these tournaments that of course you want to perform now, and ultimately all of your jobs are based on the performance and the results, but also there's a consideration of what does the future look like. Do you feel like the squad is older than you would have hoped? Like, would you have hoped to have had one or two sort of younger guys in there so that you could start preparing for 2-3 EuroBaskets down the line?
Yeah, it's for sure a topic of discussion when we were talking about intended invitees into camp within that first 24 players. And yeah, there's different people at different ages on their journey. So yeah, I mean, I would have liked Cam. I was fortunate. I think I was the coach who brought Cam in for his kind of one and only time when he was playing in the UK. And I was kind of excited at the potential of hopefully trying to see him compete. Obviously the stars haven't been able to align for that, but that would have been a consideration then. I guess if he was in and competing, I suppose. Somebody like Josh Aduje, it's the first time that he's actually been in. Obviously just graduated, and excited to kind of get a sense and a feel for who he is. And again, you watch film, you track guys, you do all this stuff, but sometimes when you're getting in the environment, one, it's for sure the coaches get a chance to work with them. But the thing that's probably the most important is them learning from the guys who've got that experience and understanding, and then, hearing a story from Miles about when Miles didn't make a team, at 2012, maybe 2013, I can't remember, and then come back and then did make the team. So there's been a lot of individual stories around that, and I think it's good for players to be able to hear that from players who've lived it. So in terms of like future proofing, you look at, I guess, someone like Quinn at his age, and you think about, hopefully, hopefully, he'll be able to be available for windows and competitions. I think I'd love Quinn to be able to compete in a competition like this against the Dennis Schroeders, and go and match themselves that way. And yeah, you absolutely want to try and give people that taste and that experience of what it looks like, and then they can carry it on further when, people at the more experienced part of their career decide that they will, move on at some point. So it's a consideration. And out of those players that you've mentioned, for sure, would love to be able to, get them in and work with them and see, where their intentions are and where their motivations are for national team basketball. But again, at the minute, my day-to-day focus here and now, and it's not my future results dependent, or that that doesn't cross my mind day to day. It's about trying to do the best that we can with the group that we've got here, and the group that we've got here, I'm exceptionally proud of. They've put an incredible amount of work in, and I want them to go and hopefully achieve our goal. But I want them to enjoy and feel proud of what it means to represent their country at this tournament. So it's a consideration. It's something we discuss. But for me, right here, right now, it's about, really proud of the 12 guys who are here, who've made the final roster, appreciative of every player who's been in camp and helped us prepare to this point, and then continue to focus there.
I know you just said that you want to focus on the players that are there, but one more question about someone that is now out. Tobi Lawal, obviously you brought him in over this period to play a couple of games. I guess that's part of just trying to have contact with him. What would you say about him and his ceiling? Like, when I think about players that I've seen come out of the UK, he is up there. I think probably number one or number two with Pops, as in the most athletic in terms of vertically gifted. What would you say about him and sort of his ceiling and where you see him slotting in the future?
Yeah, he's an NBA player, isn't he? I believe, and that's obviously a lot of the feedback that's out there at the minute. The thing that's really impressed me about Tobi is, I think I use the word integrity. I think that's the word that's really impressed me about him over the. It's probably been a year that I've known him, but I've worked with him in 2 summers now. His development from last summer to this summer, I've managed to see some of it on film throughout the year, but I guess seeing that in person for me, he's developed. You can just tell he's more comfortable in his own body in terms of how to make reads, how to play, physicality. More getting in tune with his post-college thing. And again, talking with Tobi, like on his exit chat just before he left us, I know that he valued that, being around. I always cite Miles, but, positionally, Miles is very similar and, really good for him. So, I think Dan and I sat down with him just before he left to go back to school. And I said, what have you learned? And he rattled off about 12 things that I kind of was really impressed by him, really specific, detailed things that he'd learned. That lends itself probably to your previous question about, thinking for the future as well. I feel that Tobi is fully engaged with the program. And honestly, it would have been easier for Tobi for this summer not to come to camp. That would have been the easier route for him. But he's full of integrity. He's got pride, and we had obviously some flashes of what I think he'll be able to do, and that was being in for a short space of time, and when the group had been building for about 12, 13, 14 days, somewhere around there when he joined us. So I think all of us are really excited about Tobi. I think the one thing that I've learned in this role is there's no guarantees on what the future holds for player availability. I think 7 years ago, I'd have been a little bit more stressed about player availability. My experience now says to me that, whoever is available and healthy at that moment in time, we'll get them together and we'll find a way to make it work, is our mindset, controlling what we can. But when you've got, a prospect and a talent like Tobi, and I co-sign what you said, I remember watching, Pops play. I was never around the program. I remember watching Pops play. Obviously, I speak to Dan and some of the older guys, and that comparison of athleticism is probably fair. Tobi is an incredible athlete, but I think I've been really impressed with his basketball development over the last year, and excited to see what he does this season.
The other guy that I feel like is sort of having a growing role with the program, looking at sort of the play through the prep games, is Akwasi Yeboah. Can you talk about his development and sort of where you see him slotting in with his role with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I said it to him the other day. I said it in front of the group, and Akwasi is just a beautiful human. Honestly, I cannot stress that enough. And he might give me a bit of stick for saying that in this forum, but he has found a way to be super impactful. And again, we talk about journeys with the players, but Akwasi's had a bit of a different journey from some of the other players where, he was in a window before I was involved. My first window was really probably frustrating for him. He didn't get much opportunity and, a bit of a mixed role. And then for various reasons, we weren't able to get him back in. And we kind of worked through that, got him back in. And for me, he's just been a revelation. He's. I got a chance to watch quite a few of his games this past year, and obviously seeing the role that he plays at his club. He's a hell of a basketball player. We kind of need him to be really assertive here and really take pride in being a focal point for us. And whether that's at the 3 spot or the 4 spot, I think, there's different factors that he can impact that, whether it's matchups, whether it's foul considerations. So, yeah, his role, I know that the players love playing with him. I know that they know that he's really selfless. At times, we want him to be a little bit more selfish. It's okay if he is for him. I think at times we really want him to really be assertive. But yeah, his ability to rebound, post up, cut off the ball, shoot the ball, defend multiple positions, tactically, defensively, exceptionally aware. So yeah, he had some really, really big moments for us as well throughout qualifying, that we got a chance to review as well. I remember that, the 3 to kind of kill the game in Newcastle against Netherlands, and, incredible performance, Greece at home. Not only those games, but for sure they're ones that stand out straight away. So I think he's really kind of comfortable here in our environment now. When you look at, I don't want to, not shout at everybody, but if I'm Lloyd Gardner and Mark Clark, and I can't remember who else the staff was at Barking at that time, and you see, these guys who play together out of Barking, doing that on the national team, they must feel an incredible sense of pride, that they've been able to help guys like Dan Akin and Akwasi, come out of that program, and other people that I've probably missed.
Jabril.
We have there's a point of contention with Amin, because is he Barking or Cola? We've had a little bit of friendly banter about that. But yeah, Jabril, his development, over the recent windows again. So all of us are really excited about Akwasi, and really believe that he can have a huge tournament for us. And on the back of that, I hope he gets all of the individual success and recognition that he deserves.
So when you touched upon it earlier, but just to go into a bit more detail, when you look at your sort of draw, your group at EuroBasket, you've got Lithuania, obviously Finland, Sweden, Germany, Montenegro. It's a tough group. How are you feeling about it, and how are you feeling about your team's chances?
We'll be fine. We'll give it our best punch, and we'll go from there.
Simple as that.
Yeah. No, hey, we control what we can, and we want the guys to enjoy the challenge, enjoy the opportunity. Again, experience says to me, coaches can sit in a room 3 months out, 4 months out, and say what a great draw that is, or what a bad draw that is. We can control what we can control. Lithuania is our first challenge now, so we started doing a little bit of preparation for them today with the team. Coach Alberto has been, I think he knows every action of Lithuania inside out. He's been living and breathing them for the last few months. So yeah, I think what we can control is our processes. That's what we can control. And I am really proud of our processes as the players, our staff, and everything that we do. So is Lithuania a world power? I mean, their pace, not just up and down the floor, the pace of their half-court offense, their spacing, their ability to read, their ability defensively to change and disrupt on the fly. We watch them and they play 3 or 4 different coverages in the space of a few minutes. They're an exceptional basketball team, and I'm really excited that we get the chance to compete against them. Is it a monumental task? Yes. Is it do we have a chance of winning? I will never be in this position and never go into a basketball game with this group and not believe that we can cause anybody some problems. That's my mindset. That's my attitude, and I know that's a player's attitude. Is that good? Like monumental? Yeah, for sure. Finland, we look at them and they're really unique in how they play. The way they space the floor, they have some really unique concepts. I think that's another thing that's really fun about this, is kind of diving into different teams and how they play. But, they space the floor exceptionally well. Makinen plays some 4, some 5. Their transition break has different actions that, you don't usually see. So we know that that's going to be a challenge for sure. Sweden, that they're obviously not the same size basketball nation as maybe the first 2 that we just mentioned. Coached exceptionally well. The coach has obviously dominated in the Swedish league for years, and he's now with Ludwigsburg in Germany. So Germany, world champions, I mean, and then Montenegro, really, they were at the World Cup, solid basketball team, and then you add in Vujicic for them. So, understand the level and the difficulty. I'm not sat here targeting a certain game. I'm sat here saying that we've got 5 games in 8 days. We want to try and achieve our goal. We're going to have to do something special, maybe upset the apple cart a little bit, and let's figure it out. So I want my players to feel confident, to feel prepared, and feel like we're going in as the underdog, but we'll come out punching for sure.
That is a perfect place to leave it. Marc, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're a very busy guy at the moment. Wish you and the team all the best for the tournament, and we will look forward to following your progress.
Thanks, Sam. I really appreciate all the support from everybody back home. The guys see that and they feel that. So, really appreciate everyone's positivity. Thanks, Sam.